Hi, Damien here from Power Diary. Today I want to take you through a walkthrough of setting up Medicare Claiming. This is Medicare Claiming for Australian businesses, not for US customers. So if you are in the US, this does not apply to you. This is for the Australian Medicare system. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take you from start to finish. So this is a free account. This is what your account would look like when you first started a trial. And I'll take you through each of the steps. The important thing to remember is you only have to do this stuff once. To start off with, what we're going to do is click on Tools and then go to Medicare. And you'll see here it says click here to apply. We're going to click that. And what it does is generates a location ID. And you can see now this location ID has been created. This will actually remain your location ID that you will use throughout. It doesn't matter how many practitioners you have, everyone will use this location ID, and it tells Medicare that you are linked to this account. You'll also see here a form if you're going to be processing bulk bills. Click on this form and complete it and send it in to Medicare. You can use the Medicare Claiming in Power Diary without this form being completed, but you cannot process bulk bills. Medicare won't approve them. You can submit them, but you won't get paid. So definitely make sure you complete the form here for any practitioners that will be using Power Diary and bulk billing and send it off to Medicare. Okay, now let's get straight into the account setup. And what we're going to do is ensure that Medicare is actually set up as one of your insurers. So we go into setup here and go to custom lists and just ensure that you actually have, we click on insurers here, that you have Medicare listed here. Now, depending on how you set up your account, by default, we'll often add this to an account if we can recognize it's an Australian account, but if not, you can easily add it by clicking on add insurers. I'll show you what it looks like here. It just is the insurer name. You'll see a type here. So if you're adding this yourself, just make sure that you select Medicare Australia. Show on the invoice, yes. And here, Medicare provider number. This is just so that if we are showing information on your invoice in relation to your provider number, we're using the right terminology. So obviously for Medicare, that is correct. So just click on save if you haven't already. And then now you have that. So now let's set up your clinicians. So we're going to click on here to calendars, and then we're going to click on this calendar here. So this is Julie Abbott. Now, so if we click on Julie, we'll open up Julie's details, and we're going to click on here, which is for insurers, and we can see here that there are no current insurers. So Medicare is considered a type of insurer. So what we do here is we just want to add this in for Julie. So here we're going to say the insurer type is Medicare. The service type for instance, psychologists, and we'll typically find it listed as specialist. And now we're going to add in a provider number. So here I will just make a provider number up. And these two fields you can normally ignore. This is only if you want payments made to a different provider. So sometimes the principal psychologist or principal practitioner in a clinic will have the money deposited into their account via their provider number, but for the most part, people will typically have the provider number registered to a bank account with Medicare, so you don't need to worry about that. And importantly, we're looking at where would you like this provider number to be used, so for what locations. And here I've added a couple of locations to this account, so Essendon and Melbourne City. Now you can either select all, so it will default to that, or if this provider number is just for one location, all you need to do is select that location. So here we'll click on Melbourne, and you can also have this be used for the default for all clients. So I'm just going to click on yes for this. So it means that when you create a new client, by default, it will set up a Medicare record in their profile, but it's not essential. So I'm just going to add this. And what we can see now down here is that we have this Medicare provider listed, and we can see that the location that is included there for that. So let's add another insurer. So I'll just close that off, and you can see this insurer listed here. So now I'm going to add another insurer, and this is for the scenario where we have a couple of different provider numbers. So now we want another insurer for a different location. So here we'll select Medicare again, we'll select the same details here, and now we're going to add in a different provider number. And this time for the location, we are going to use the other one. So this is just so that you'll end up with, there you go. This is sort of some validation that has popped up to detect if the provider number is likely to be incorrect. So that's a handy thing to have happen. So I can show you that. And now it is creating this record here. So we'll just close this now. It's been saved, and you can see that for this diary, so for the psychologist, let's say Julie, we have two different provider numbers that are recorded in the system for two different locations. And this becomes important, of course, because we know that Medicare require different provider numbers to be used at different locations most of the time. And what Power Diary will do is detect the location that you provided an appointment at, and will actually use the right provider number for that particular appointment. And it just means that your claims go through the first time rather than having them rejected or having a problem in terms of claiming with the wrong provider number. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to set up services. So we go set up and click on services, and we're just going to add a service here, and we'll call this let's say Medicare Standard, and we'll call this 50 mins plus. Now you can use whatever you like here in terms of the name. It won't affect anything, but it's helpful from a receipt point of view, that if you're generating invoices that someone might be claiming manually for some reason, that you do have a name that Medicare would recognize, but it's not vital for electronic claiming. This part is, though, the item code. So this is the item number. So here we'll put 80110 as an example. Don't put anything else in there, just put the Medicare item number that is there. The duration I'm going to set to 60 minutes. It doesn't matter overall that it's longer than this 51 minutes that minimum that we have for this particular item number, but 60 minutes is nicely rounded out. You can put, of course, 51 or whatever length of session you have there. Here we want to select the tax status for this service. So this is, of course, is tax exempt. And for the price here, we'll just put in, say, $180. Now, a category, we don't have any category set up in this account here, but if you had a lot of services, a lot of products, you can actually set up categories to group them together, and it just means they're a little bit more organized. We can ignore this for now. This is just if you want to take a deposit on the client portal if someone was booking this online, but we'll ignore this for now. So I'll just click save, and you'll see now we have this Medicare service, and that we have now an item number listed, we have a price, we have a tax status, and we are good to go. Next up, I'm going to set up a client and just show you how this works. So we'll just pinch one of these clients that comes with the account. Here, let's take John Smith, and you'll see here that John already has a Medicare field here ready to be completed. So this is where we'd add John's Medicare details. So I'll just add in let's say a number here. Now this is not a real number, but hopefully we can still get this. There we go. You can see it turned red, so that just means that it detected it was not the right format. I had one too many letters in there. So then we'll put in an expiry date as well. And we'll click save. So this just records a Medicare number here for John. Now, let's say, for instance, you found that there was no Medicare field here. So there are circumstances where a client profile can be created perhaps before you had set up Medicare, and therefore you may not have a field here for each one. You can actually fix that by just going to billing insurance, and you can add insurance here. So you can see Medicare's there because I just added it, but we could also add a different insurer. So for instance, if they also had private health and so forth, you could add in those details here and add in a new insurer. But if you are missing that Medicare field, that's where to find it. While we're in this client, what I'm also going to do is add in a referral, because we know most circumstances Medicare requires a referral. So we're just going to click on Profile Referrals and we'll add a referral. Now I have cheated here and I have added a referrer, so a GP here. Now, if you were setting it up yourself from scratch, you could just go to People over here on the left, Create and Referrer, and you can actually add in a referrer directly there. But here I've just added one in for time saving purposes. Here we want to add in the start date of the referral, and this is usually the date that the GP either processed a mental health care plan, if that was the case, but usually the date of the referral or the mental health care plan is fine. So here we'll just put in April. End date, we normally put in approximately a year, but of course it can be longer or indefinite. We're going to say this is default and we want to show this on the invoice print, and we'll click Save. So what we'll see here now is that this client, I'll just close this to give us more space. You'll see here we now have a referral listed for this patient. Okay, next up I want to show you how to make a claim. And so this sort of information that we've added now, you really only need to do once. But over here we're now going to see how it all works. So we click on the appointment, we get the appointment panel here, and we want to add the service that was provided. We can see the new service that I added here as appearing, so Medicare Standard. And I'm just going to click on Save to show you something, because it's actually going to generate an invoice. Now, for most circumstances, if you're claiming with Medicare, you're going to do it electronically, obviously with PowerDiary. But there might be circumstances where you want to provide an invoice and the person can take it to Medicare. So I'm just going to click on here for Edit Invoice, just to show you what this invoice looks like behind the scenes. And you can see here that we actually have the referral attached. We can see that it's linked to Medicare, and that we have the details here. So we have a Medicare standard item, we have the item code, we have the amount, and so forth. Now we can add a payment here, or we can add it on the main screen, but I just want to show you that it has all this information on here. And if we were to print this, so create a PDF of it, what you'll also notice is that we have here the Medicare provider number for Julie. And so for the psychologist that provided this in this circumstance, we can see we've got the details there. And so this is actually a compliant Medicare invoice, because it has the item number, it has the date the service was provided, it has the payment status, GST status, it also has the referral details all automatically included. So the GP that made the referral date and period, the provider number, and the address. So everything that we need to include is there. We also have details about who the service was provided to and what appointment date that was. So we actually have everything that we need to submit this to Medicare if it was being done the old school way and the actual invoice was being sent in. One thing I'll just show you though whilst we are on this here, and I'm just going to close out this invoice here and go back, and I'm going to move this appointment across. I'm just going to slide it across just to demonstrate something over to here. And what I've done here, you can see it says you have selected a time rostered at a different location. Would you like to update the location on the appointment? So this is the system detecting that the roster, you can see the blue and the white, reflects two different locations that Julie works across. So let's say John had the appointment at a different location, and now if I go to print the invoice, so we'll just click the print here, what you'll see is that now Julie's provider number has been updated to the correct provider number for that location. So you don't have to muck around with modifying and changing provider numbers. It will always select the right one based on the location of the appointment, and that all happens automatically. Okay, now back to submitting a claim. So we have added a Medicare service, and now you'll see this little M over here for Medicare. We're going to just click on that, and you'll now see that we have a few options here. So we have DVA options, so Department of Veterans Affairs. That operates in a very similar way, so I won't go into that now, but if you're providing DVA, you'll know a bit about that. But here we're going to focus on create a patient claim or create a bulk bill claim. Depending on the way your practice is set up, it will depend obviously on which one you click here. If we go to create bulk bill claim, what you'll see is that it populates all the information that is required for this claim, puts in the details, puts in the service amount. Now you can see the charge amount here is more, of course, than what Medicare will pay. That won't matter in terms of the way Medicare see it. However, it would be worth editing the charge amount in the invoice. Otherwise, you'll end up, when this is paid, it will still end up showing as money outstanding. So what we typically suggest is that you create different services for whether it's bulk billed or whether it's the full amount. By creating different services, it means you just select that this is Medicare bulk billed or Medicare standard, and then you don't need to be fiddling around changing the amounts each time. So I'm just going to go back here for now and not submit that and just show you what a patient claim one looks like. You can see that it's almost identical, although you'll see here it says account is fully paid no. Now this is highlighted because it means that if you were to submit this, the rebate is going to go to the clinician, but of course via a check to the client, as I'm sure you're aware. So what we want to do is make sure wherever we can that your invoice is marked as paid. Now you don't have to, of course, if you're happy to accept the checks being sent to the client and then submitted to you, that's fine, but we find that most people don't. So what I'm going to do here is just indicate that this has been paid. I'll just select cash. So now this is paid. I'll now go to select the claim again, create a patient claim. You can see now account is fully paid. That means you've collected the money from the patient, and now the patient is going to get the rebate amount sent to them. So all this information is pre-filled. You don't need to touch anything. All you need to do is click on send, and that will submit it to Medicare. Now I won't submit this one because obviously I've entered in a lot of fake details here, and I don't want Medicare contacting us asking what we are doing. But if you just click send, you'll get a confirmation message to show that the claim has been submitted. Usually the patient will get the claim back fairly quickly from Medicare. They do vary slightly, but it's usually overnight in most circumstances. And that is all you need to do. Now, if we had submitted this, you'd actually be able to see the claims here. If we clicked on this, you'd actually see a list of all the claims that have been lodged for that particular invoice. So let's say you did happen to lodge one and it was rejected for some reason, then you'd have an opportunity to re-lodge it multiple times, so you can correct something and then re-lodge it again. Okay, a couple of quick tips and questions that we get asked, and really this comes down to how you would manage when you're providing Medicare services to a minor, because we know that Medicare don't want to pay the rebate, of course, to a minor. They would rather pay it to the parent or guardian. So let's imagine here, so we'll go in and we'll say that Mary Lee is the minor. Now what we can do here is actually add a contact. So if we add a contact here, we can say, okay, here's a contact here, and now I'm going to say that John Smith is the, and here I'll select the relationship. We'll say John Smith is the father of Mary Lee. So this has established the relationship between them. If John was not an existing client, you would see on that previous screen that there is an option to add, of course, a new contact that's not already in your system. But the handy thing about this example is that John already has a Medicare profile in Powderary. If John didn't have a Medicare profile, let's say as a new person you're adding as a contact, you can just make sure that you add the details here to reflect that. And that way that you can actually you can record this here and make sure that this person is utilized when we are doing a claim. So you can see now that this relationship is set up, and then when claiming you now have the option to select John as the claimant, so John as the father. Okay, that's about it. I think for now, I think that sort of gives you a quick overview about the claim processing and how to get everything up and running. The final thing I'd say is that when you want to go back and check the status of claims, we just click on this Medicare, so Tools and Medicare button here, and what you'll see here is information. Now obviously this table is empty because we haven't submitted claims, but you'll see the status of different claims. If you've been batching up bulk bills, and so if you've been batching them to submit at the end of the day, you can go through and you can submit all of those. Alternatively, if you wanted to check what bulk bills have been paid, you can request a bulk bill payment status report, and that will get all the information back for you. And of course you have a bunch of filter options here if you're trying to track down something in particular. So if you wanted to narrow down, look at a provider over a particular date range and so forth. So lots of stuff that you can do here. We'll likely make another video with how to use this dashboard at a later time. We'll just need to use one with a lot of data in it from a Medicare account that, or in other words, an account that Medicare knows is fake, so that we can show you that without getting ourselves into any strife. Okay, I hope that is helpful. If you go to our help section, so click on help, you'll see this here. And you can always search here. So we'll have lots of help files. So if we just type in Medicare, you will find that we have a whole bunch of articles on Medicare, including how to check claim statuses and troubleshooting and the different error codes you might get and so forth. So if you are looking for anything, then you'll usually be able to find it in our knowledge base, or of course you can click on this ask here and you can ask one of our team either via chat if it's during our chat hours, or if it's after hours you can send us an email. All right, I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, do let us know. Thank you.